So I was saying there's no growth in intellectual pursuits. And that was mainly because of the kind of thing that the Sacerdotium was doing. What was it doing? The Sacerdotium believed in creationism. If you remember, I told you that it saw the world as the creation of God. And having said that the world is the creation of God, it also went on to argue that since God created the world and you can only understand what you have created, uh, you as a human being cannot understand the working of the universe because uh, the wisdom of God is far, far superior to that of the human beings, or for that matter, any other living beings. So they said, if we need to have knowledge of the world, it doesn't work if we uh, try to use our human rationality, because human rationality has time and again proved its inadequacy in terms of bringing any kind of proper, indisputable understanding of anything, including the universe and the way it functions. Now, what we need to realize here is that after this particular argument, that our rationality as human beings, in fact, the church didn't consider any other species of animal uh, as having any kind of rationality at all. So they said it's a human being who is rational, but the human being is not so rational so as to be able to understand the purpose of what or why God created the universe and what is it that keeps the universe running, what is it that keeps the universe ticking. So he, after having said that, the church, uh, the church basically came up with this idea that any kind of knowledge that or any kind of knowledge that we can have about the world is something that has to be shown to us, or the word they used is revelation, which is in terms of revealing, showing. Okay. So revelation is the only way in which one can actually understand what is the world, why is it here, what is our role in it, and what should we do. So when they said that, there is a thing that we cannot uh, forget, and that thing that we cannot forget is that any kind of knowledge that comes to us has to come from God directly. We cannot find out through our rational investigations. In fact, they said that if you use your rational investigations or if you try to rationally investigate into the processes of the world, then what you are actually ending up doing is that uh, you are only in a way uh, you are only in a way uh, you know, getting under the control of Satan or the devil. Uh, I think you know the story of Satan. Uh, Satan was one of the archangels uh, of God, and he was, in fact, considered to be the favorite archangel of God. And his real name was uh, Lucifer, and what people say is that Lucifer had become, due to the fact that he was uh, really, really liked by God, he tried to take advantage of that and he became a disobedient kind of a person. And therefore, God cast him out of heaven or paradise and cast him into hell. So you see, there is this three realm theory. So you have heaven on the top, you have the earth or our world in the middle, and below us you have hell. And hell is where sinners went, and heaven or paradise is where people who lived a pious life as per the dictats of God lived. Now, how did the dictats of God, how do we know the dictats of God? Because you see, we can't see God, we can't smell God, we can't touch God if God doesn't talk to us. So the church perpetuated the idea that all human beings cannot do it, but the scholastics and the clergy, uh, they are capable of, uh, you know, communicating with God. Uh, the scholastics and the clergy, they are communicating with God in the sense that because of the fact that they lead a certain kind of a pious life, uh, and they know the scriptures and the sacraments and all those things, they are able to communicate with God. And therefore, you see that the church or the Sacerdotium, it became an intermediate uh, between God and human being. Okay, so that is the reason why you had the practice of confession, which is the practice of confession is where you go and confess to a priest or a pastor that you did something bad or you thought something bad, and so you want the forgiveness of God, and the pastor would say, I will convey your prayer to God, and then he would say, uh, yeah, I have conveyed your prayer, and God has decided to forgive you. Okay, so now if you look at Christianity, the whole thing is something which believes in the idea that the human being is a sinner at every level. Okay, human being is a sinner. Um, as soon as we are born with the original sin that was committed by Eve, which is eating the forbidden fruit in the tree of paradise. And because Eve had eaten the forbidden fruit, which God said forbidden is obvious, God said you cannot eat this. Because she committed that sin of eating it, we were thrown down not to hell, but to earth. Okay, so that is what it says. And after that, it also says God wanted to give an opportunity for human beings to redeem themselves and return back to paradise. And so, what he did is that he periodically sent knowledge to the people living on the earth. So, technically, we are all progeny of uh, Adam and Eve. Okay, so in that sense, we are all brothers and sisters. All right, and as per the Christian law, the world is about, I think it's about 2,000 years old or even less, 1 millennium. Yeah, it's 1,000 years old. Okay, so that is as per the Christian law. And so if you look at this, then if you have to go back to heaven after your death, this world is a temporary world. It's an ephemeral world. You're here for just a few days, a few years, and if you live your life piously, properly, then it basically means that you will be uh, finding a place in um, heaven. But how do we know how to live correctly? So, this is where revelation comes. Revelation is God revealing true knowledge to human beings, okay, about how to live their life and about how to even, what should I say, uh, be pious, virtuous, and thereby win the favor of God. And while you live virtuously uh, and you attend to all the things that God asks you to attend, if you do all that, then you will basically, after your time is up in this ephemeral world, you go back to eternal happiness, which is happiness that lasts forever in heaven. Okay, that is what uh, the church said, and the agent. Not, I don't use the word in the negative sense that we have in India. When we say agent, somehow it seems like a middleman, but it is a middle this thing. But we have an idea that it is people who are corrupt who take money and do things, agents. That's not what it is. It is some kind of an agency, if you like, the church that will facilitate your understanding of the world and uh, the wisdom of God. So, where is this wisdom of God and who is bringing it down? The wisdom of God comes through the medium of prophets. Okay, so when we talk about the medium of prophets, we are talking about Jesus Christ, namely. I told you Christ essentially means prophet or Messiah, and both these mean that they are trying to uh, save the world. Okay, Messiah is one who saves the world, and the prophet is also trying to save the world by bringing the correct knowledge. Now, there's a little bit of confusion here. Now, if you read the Bible, you don't find anywhere any evidence that Jesus Christ, for example, who's the prophet, wrote anything himself. Jesus Christ is quoted by various apostles. So, if you look at the Bible, you have these sections which say Luke, then Mark. So these are the people who are supposed to be the apostles who understood the teachings and the deeper significance of what Jesus Christ had to say, and they had compiled it into a form where it was all put together and it could be uh, preached by the church to the rest of the world. So that is revelation. Okay, and revelation is something that comes into the picture mainly because of the fact that we are considered incapable of understanding this world, which we did not create. We are sinners who have been cast out of paradise and onto earth. And if we continue to be recalcitrant, if we continue to be people who don't do what God asks us to do, then you have to go to hell. And in hell, you don't have Lucifer or the devil or Satan. Satan actually is an anglicization of the Arabic word shaitan. Shaitan becomes Satan. And if you're not comfortable with Satan, you can use the word devil. And I don't know if any of you follow rock music. You'll find that in rock music, musicians showing this symbol. Okay? Not all forms of rock music, some forms of rock music. And this symbol is the symbol of the devil. These are the horns, of the devil, so to speak. The devil also has a tail and all that kind of stuff. So the devil is not sitting there waiting for you to lead an impious life, life without virtue, and come down to him. He's not. The devil is also somebody who's tempting you. Okay? He's tempting you away from the path of virtue, away from the path of God, and he is basically trying to get you to go to hell after you die because you're living an impious life otherwise. Now, if pious life or virtuous life as such is projected as a life of dignity, as a life of simplicity, as a life of non-indulgence in unnecessary uh, pleasures, what the Bible says is that Satan provides you exactly these enticements. Okay, so he provides you these enticements, which are, the pursuit of luxury, the pursuit of sinfulness, the pursuit of greed, which comes in the seven deadly sins, which are, I don't want to list them out now, that will take a lot of time. So there are seven deadly sins. The pursuit of those which make you believe that you're having a great life here on earth, are the ones that actually draw you away from God, away from the possibility of going to heaven, and you go down to hell. Okay, that is basically what it means. Now, if you look at this particular thing, so there was always this uh, vigilance on the part of the church into the lives of people. Okay, and when certain words uh, came into Christianity, their meanings were also changed. For example, virtue. Now, virtue as a word can be traced back to ancient Greece. And in ancient Greece, what virtue meant basically was your ability to excel in something. Okay. This is a meaning that has slowly been lost in time, especially with the Christians trying to appropriate the word virtue and make it pious living uh, according to the diktats of God. Okay, but there is one uh, usage of virtue still which does talk about excellence and not necessarily this uh, moral, morally great life. Uh, and that is virtuoso. You must have heard of this word. Uh, virtuoso, essentially, you use it, you could have used it in any context if you were in Greece. But in the present times, we use it only to denote musicians who excel in playing some instruments. So you say Yehudi Menuhin was a violin virtuoso, and you would say he was a violin virtuoso because he gave his first very big concert at the Royal Albert Hall in London at the age of 6. So Yehudi Menuhin has been considered a violin virtuoso. Similarly, our own El Subramaniam has been considered to be a violin virtuoso. You have Veena virtuosos also. Veena virtuosos are people like um, Chitti Babu and Imani Shankara Shastri. Um, then you have sitar virtuosos, who are people like the great Ravi Shankar, and then later on, of course, nowadays even Nikhil Banerjee is considered to be a sitar virtuoso. You say a tabalchi virtuoso or a tabla virtuoso. So you talk about Zakir Hussain and you talk about his father, Allah Rakha. So that usage is still there. That virtuoso as something that is excellence in playing music. That is there, but in every other form, you don't say uh, for example, you don't say Sachin Tendulkar was a batting virtuoso in cricket. You don't use it there. Some people try to, but it's rather rare and unaccepted. It's only accepted in the context of music. Now, the Romans had their own take on virtue. In fact, the direct this thing of virtue into Latin came from the word vir, vir, vir. And vir essentially means manliness. Now, you might be surprised to know that people think that the two ancient languages in the world from which almost every other language has been derived are Sanskrit and Latin. Okay, in this part of the world, whatever languages, whatever usages we have of different words are those which came from Sanskrit. And we believe in the Western world it is Latin. But you must understand that this is an untrue perception because Latin is also an Indo-European language, which essentially means that it is also partly derived from Sanskrit. Okay, so the Sanskrit word, veer, it is used in Hindi to show a brave man. Okay, say Veer Hamir. So a Veer is a brave man who is a great fighter, a courageous person. It's there in Telugu, not only just to show bravery and courage. Veerya, that is actually the source. Veerya in Telugu basically means, male fertility. Okay, and it also means courage. So if you say nirvirya, that is Sanskrit again, it essentially means one who has lost his fertility or skills and the bravery that are associated with them. So you see, Latin also uses a number of words. I know you may think I'm wasting your time, but these are important things that you should know because otherwise we don't understand how languages have evolved. For example, what is in English, which is again another Indo-European language. And in fact, many people will tell you 50% of English, or perhaps even slightly more, is actually Indian. So many people say one should consider English as a native Indian language and not as an import from somewhere else. So in English, for instance, there are so many words like brother. Okay, brother, and in what is that in Sanskrit? It is bhrata. Okay, it's bhrata, brother. Mata, mother. So you see, there are so many of these overlapping examples that you can, and it is similar in Latin also. Mater. Okay, mater, mata. Pita, pater, P-A-T-E-R. So there are a lot of language, mixtures, languages. And in fact, Noam Chomsky's argument is that there is only one structure of grammar that is something that is applicable to all languages and that is inbuilt into our head at the time when we are born. And that is the reason why it makes it possible for us to learn so many different languages. Our wonderful Prime Minister, I don't mean it sarcastically, P.V. Narasimha Rao was really polyglot. He could speak and write in 15 languages, which is an amazing skill. especially considering the fact that I am slightly, not slightly, I'm very, very handicapped when it comes to learning new languages. I barely can speak any language with perfection. I don't think there's a single language that I know properly. But somebody like even Narasimha Rao, he knew 15 languages and he knew them pretty well. So if you're looking at these kind of things, I'm giving you this additional information because this is going to be very useful to you if you're going to write some competitive exams. Don't ever take a myopic perspective of life, thinking I've got to pass this next examination, and for that I only need this. I don't need to do more than that. Okay, never take that perspective to education. With education, you have to take the perspective that I'm glad you agree, Jeremy. Um, uh, you have to take the perspective that knowledge in itself is something that is a great virtue, and you don't know where exactly knowledge will come in useful. I mean, if you go and speak intelligently, if you give unknown facts to people, people will believe, wow, this person is really intelligent and this person knows a lot. So you also earn respect of fellow members of society. Okay, so that little bit of moral instruction. But now let's get back to church. So the church changed the meaning of virtue and changed it completely to mean only pious life. It meant living life as per what was written in the Bible, and you had to live as per what was written in the Bible because of the fact that the Bible is not the wisdom of human beings, but it is the wisdom of God, which is the most superior form of wisdom. So they believe that our wisdom is somehow, um, what should I say, our wisdom is somehow inferior, very, very inferior compared to the wisdom of God. And that is if you're charitable. But otherwise, if you look at the more Orthodox Christians, they believe that we didn't have any wisdom at all. Whatever wisdom we have has to come through the Bible, through the revelation of knowledge by God. Okay, we don't have any inbuilt wisdom in ourselves. And like I said, the rational faculty was considered as a harmful thing because it was the rational faculty that made you question things. And if you question things uh, in the Bible, then it was basically meant that you are questioning the wisdom of God and you're doing so under the influence of Satan. Okay, so such people are called heretics. Heretic is Latin for disbeliever, one who doesn't have faith. And faith here is in the context of religious faith. Okay, so if you therefore look at this, you'll see that the meaning of virtue was deliberately changed in order to draw compliance out of people to the diktats of the church, to the diktats of the church. And it also basically meant that you would be following in the footsteps of God. Now, a small aside here, which is not an unconnected aside. Now, the Christian idea of God originally, like I told you, was no name, no shape, and uh, it was just this uh, spirit which encompassed the world, much like the Sanskrit Vishnu and Krishna. They're not names of individuals or anthropomorphic uh, entities. Now, but over time, it has changed. Jesus Christ was supposed to be the Son of God originally. Okay, and Jesus Christ said, I am bearing the cross when he was being crucified. He said, I am bearing the cross for the forgiveness of uh, God for all sinners who basically were, what should I say, they were deviating from the path of virtue. So he said, let my death be a lesson to you that I have died for you. And as the Son of God, uh, God has taken my life because I have appropriated all your sins into myself. And for that reason, I'm dying on a cross, a very painful death. Okay, so that is what is the message that comes out. So uh, now the thing is, people will tell you Jesus Christ was the Son of God, who basically uh, died for the sake of ridding humanity of its sins. But human beings are human beings, and they continue to, uh, if some old sins have been forgotten, then we commit new sins. And that is the reason why uh, we have to go for confession to the church and confess to the priests who can directly communicate with God. So this is one idea of God. Other idea of God is Jesus himself is God. He's not the Son of God. He's God. And that this seems to be more of a modern belief, a 20th century belief, or maybe a 19th century belief, but not older than that. And this is there among the Catholics rather than the Protestants. Okay, and those of you who are aware of the history of the Christian Church, you will know that there are two main. At one time, there was only one Christianity. That's it. And its seat was Rome. And why did Rome become the seat of Christianity? Why was the St. Peter's Cathedral built in Rome, which was at one time the mortal enemy of the church? And it was the Romans and the prefect Pontius Pilate who put Jesus on the cross and killed him. Okay, so technically speaking, it should have been Jerusalem or any of those areas in the Middle East. The Kaaba stone, the story, I won't get into that. Sorry, that will take us away, but I'll tell you the story of the Kaaba stone some other time. It's a very interesting story because it's been a bone of contention between the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims. So if we look at uh, why did uh, this Rome become the seat of Christianity? Why did it become, if you like, the headquarters of Christianity? And that has everything to do with the fact that Rome, which earlier challenged Christianity, but it was defeated by Christianity. Did I tell you this thing of the classification of the historian James L. Weiser, the classification of Rome as a universal pragmatic civilization and the classification um, of Christianity as a universal spiritual civilization. Did I tell you that? Does anyone? No, I didn't. All right. Now, James L. Weiser says, I'll tell it to you very quickly so that we don't waste too much time here. James L. Weiser says that Weiser is W-I-S-E-R. Weiser apparently was a wise man. So this his characterization of Rome is that it is a universal pragmatic civilization. Now, why are you calling it universal, first and foremost? Okay, that's the thing that you need to ask yourself. You are calling it universal because given you're looking at the size of the Roman Empire, which is spectacular by any day standards. Never in the history of the world has there been an empire that equals the might and size of the Romans, okay, or the Roman Empire as such. So the Roman Empire, in fact, had to have it went all the way right through Western Europe. It went through, that was the known world. We're not talking about the unknown world, which is America and all those which were discovered much later. So in the known world, it occupied the whole of Western Europe. It occupied most of Eastern Europe. It also went down into Africa. It went into the Horn of Africa. It went into what is today Egypt. The famous romance between Julius Caesar and Cleopatra. And you know, when I was reading Asterix comics, this is a bit you should know. This there is the thing ends, that comic Asterix and Cleopatra. It ends with Julius Caesar and Cleopatra having a son who they call Caesarion in that comic. Now, I thought, just like a lot of other things, which are all made up names, you know, they make up names like Hallelujah, Raucous Chorus. Okay, then they make up a name like Obelix, which be people like me, like this, paunchy types. So Obelix and Asterix, which comes from asterisk, which is the star. So I thought they had made up a name like that with Caesar's son, Caesarion. But much to my consternation, I found out many years later that Cleopatra's and Julius Caesar's son's name was actually Caesarion. And the C-section that is carried out, or what is called Caesarian, that is carried out today to, if people are not able to give birth to children normally, that is, I thought it was a play on Caesarian like that. but it isn't. Caesarion is drawn out of the name of the son of Caesar and Cleopatra. Anyway, so it was such a big empire that it was universal in that sense, pragmatic, because it was all military, it was all proving of superiority of one over the other. And so, if you look at the ideas of jurisprudence in Cicero and Seneca, you will find that these people are trying to create a codified set of laws. Okay, uh, codified. Today, our constitutions anywhere in the world are codified sets of laws. All right, but if you have a panchayat system in which somebody says something and is punished for it or rewarded for it, that is not codified. Okay, it is not like you do this, you get this punishment. You don't do this, you get this punishment. It isn't that kind of thing. A codification is where an offense is mentioned and the punishment for that offense is also mentioned. So constitutions are those which have actually been given to us by the Romans, not in the Greeks. What you read in that thing about Aristotle having read 158 constitutions is all rubbish. There were no 158 constitutions. All he did was he studied how people operated systems of law in those days. But the codified system of laws came from the Romans. And now the Romans didn't believe in the equality of people. Okay? Uh, in our fundamental rights, we say equality is one of the most important rights. And so equality doesn't figure anywhere in Roman jurisprudence. What it says, contrary to what we know today and what we say today, it says that all people are not equal. Okay, it says that those who had been conquered by the Romans were necessarily inferior to the Romans. And the Romans, because they conquered these people, were necessarily superior. So the same set of laws cannot be applied to the inferior people and to the superior people. So people like Cicero dedicated his life to basically try and codify laws in accordance with this particular idea that those who have lost the war are unequals of the those who won it. And so he was trying to find a set of laws for the Romans and another set of laws for the slaves. These people became slaves, okay, by losing to the Romans in wars. They had proved that they are inferior. So slavery as an institution finds itself changed. I think if you remember what I told you last semester about Aristotle, Aristotle is a defender of slavery. He's not a defender of this kind of slavery. In Aristotle, what you find is this kind of what do you say, a juxtaposition where the slave is mentally not as accomplished as the master. The master is mentally far, far superior to the slave. So what does he do? It is his responsibility to look after the slave, to tell the slave what to do in what conditions. Okay, and then in return for the favor that the master is doing to the slave in terms of telling the slaves what kind of things they should do, under which circumstances, showing them the right path, guiding them the right path. to the right path of life, you see that the slave in return is supposed to do physical labor for the master. So this is some kind of a symbiotic relationship. I'll do what you cannot do, and you do for me something in return, which maybe I can do, but I don't want to do, which is physical labor. Okay, so that is a different form of slavery. Okay, that's not this form of slavery that you find in the Romans, where you treat people as completely inferior, people with no rights, people with no recourse to the law. And that was also the practice of what is called Oriental despotism, which was there in some of the Arab countries. And it also came to India through the medium of the Muslim rulers. In India, originally there was no slavery. Okay, whatever slavery came to India came through the Muslim rulers. And the Muslim rulers had uh, brought these slaves with them so that they would help them, or rather, they would do their daily chores for them. And if you look at what happened, first Islamic dynasty in India is called the slave dynasty. Now, in terms of the way it is worded, slave dynasty, it's an oxymoron. How can slaves have a dynasty? How can they be rulers? Okay, you're either a slave or you're a ruler. You can't be both, a slave and a ruler. So, what is it that led to this oxymoron? What led to this oxymoron is that the people who came with Muhammad Ghauri to attack India, uh, some of them were classified as slaves, not by anyone, but by Ghauri and his generals. And these slaves were there to do the work for the soldiers of the army of Muhammad Ghauri. And you'll also see that uh, the slaves were also given training in warfare, because if at all there was a necessity to fight a war, even along the way to India, remember there were the plundering and marauding Mongols. So if you had to fight them, then the slaves couldn't become sitting ducks. So they were also taught uh, the art of fighting, military craft. But when Ghauri was going back after he plundered whatever he wanted to plunder from India, when he was going back, he felt it unnecessary to take the slaves back with him, because his idea was, if you take the slaves back, then you're incurring a lot of expenditure on these people who had served their purpose and they had no more uh, purpose to serve. So he left them here and went away. So these slaves who were also trained to be like soldiers, they were the ones who actually uh, set up the Delhi Sultanate. So the first Islamic dynasty is the slave dynasty, and it is what we call the first, one of the first kings of the slave dynasty, uh, Qutbuddin Aibak. Uh, he wanted to show that the slaves are not inferior. Uh, so he had this chip on the shoulder. He didn't want to show that the slaves were inferior. So what would he do? He would basically uh, go on to construct this famous, the minar is actually a symbol of Islam. You see, any masjid has at least one minar. In Hyderabad itself, Hyderabad is dotted with eight minar masjids, and then you have the Char Minar, which is four minarets actually. And so he wanted to show that the slaves were something. So he got the Qutub Minar built, and just to prove to the world that they were not inferior to anyone else. And Alauddin, nowadays they're calling him Khalji. Actually, it's not Khalji. It used to be called, he used to be called Khilji. Now, it's not Khilji either. Okay? The way the Islamic names are pronounced, if you write, for example, Khalit, you don't read it as Khalid. Okay? You read it as Khalid. Lit. It's a shortened A rather than E. Khalid is not the way. Khalid is the way. Okay, so Khilji is also not Khilji, it's Khilji. Khilji. So Khalji is what the spelling becomes in English. That is a unfortunate part of the English language. It's poor phonetic base. So Alauddin Khilji, I'll call him that because I'm used to that. There was somebody who decided that he'll also show that he was no less than Qutbuddin Aibak. So right next to the Qutb Minar, he went and started the construction of a minar which would be taller than the Qutb Minar. It was supposed to be called the Alai Minar. If any of you have been to Delhi, and if you did the tourist round of all these places, if you went to Qutb Minar, you would have seen this. There are two very important things there. There is one which is the Ashoka pillar, which is this thing of metallurgy. It's an iron pillar left out in the open, and it has not got rust, is not worn away with the weather. So the Indians were apparently great metallurgists, especially when it came to iron and gold. And that is probably why we have this obsession with gold anyway. So Qutbuddin Aibak built the Qutub Minar next to the Ashokan pillar, so that those who saw that will also see what his achievement is. And Alauddin Khilji wanted to basically show that he could build a taller structure. Unfortunately, despite 5 or 6 attempts, the thing never went higher than 10 feet or 12 feet. It used to collapse. So you'll see that it was supposed to be called the Alai Minar because it is named after Alauddin. So Alai Minar never took off. Did anyone see this in Delhi? Did anyone go to Delhi? Did anyone see this while you were in Delhi? No? Okay. Because actually this is probably one of the slightly more interesting sites to see in Delhi. Otherwise, the rest of them are all graves. Okay. Humayun's tomb, and You go to Fatehpur Sikri, which is not really near Delhi. Then you have the Buland Darwaza there. So, yeah, Fatehpur Sikri and Buland Darwaza are definitely worth places of tourist interest, as is Taj Mahal in Agra, which is again not in Delhi. But in Delhi itself, in Delhi, it is only this site which is really, really uh, of some historical value. Because you see this iron pillar, you see this Qutub Minar, and then you see the failed Alai Minar. So what you see therefore is this kind of slavery came, and the slaves started taking slaves. And they started taking slaves initially from non-Muslim communities. And they literally worked them to death. Okay, they literally worked them to death. And that is why it's called Oriental despotism. The average life of a slave uh, was 12 years. Can you believe that? 12 years. So today we say that the Western civilization has taught us use and throw. Okay, so today nobody wants to repair anything. When I was young, I remember anything and everything could be repaired. There was one particular table fan which apparently was older than I was. And it was there till the time that I was 30. Okay, and it was in working condition and it could be repaired several times at that. But after that, now, if something goes wrong, you just pick it up and throw it away. You don't repair it because the cost of repairs and the lack of guarantee that they'll work again for a decent period of time, all these things that say it's much better to throw away the old things, especially these FMCG goods. We throw them away and buy new ones. If a mixie is gone, chuck it, buy a new mixie. So, like that, the use and throw actually came with the slaves in India from the Muslims. What they used to do is that they used to uh, work the slaves to the ground. They used to work them into the ground, and if they fell ill, they were not taken care of because it was believed that if you tried to take care of someone, if you actually tried to take care of someone, it was more expensive. This is exactly what I was trying to tell you when we talk about appliances today, right? So we think it's more expensive to repair and keep. So they didn't want people to be looked after. And looking after would mean two things. First of all, you're incurring an expenditure. And second of all, you're also at a time when you need the slave, instead of the slave doing the work for you, you're doing the work for the slave. So Oriental despotism, what it did is it let the slaves die. Okay? And then they used to go and buy a new slave. Slaves were bought here, unlike the Romans who conquered, and they also did buy, no doubt about that. So that is one form of slavery. All forms of slavery, therefore, are not the same. So please, whenever you're encountered with the word slave, try to find out in which context it is being used. Then you will see that there are many not so subtle variations on the concept of what slavery is and who a slave is. So anyway, so you would see that uh, the Romans were basically trying to have, but even though they didn't want to give rights to the slaves, they wanted to give them duties. And if they did not do the duties, then they would be liable for severe punishment. They had no recourse to the law that way. But the law stated what was a crime. The law stated a slave couldn't do something. So that is why you have these two kinds of jurisprudence for people who are superior and for people who are inferior. All right. And so this was how it was going on. And this created, even though, like I said, Weiser calls it a universal pragmatic civilization, which is, you have brought a lot of territories together under one administration. You could not bring about a spiritual unification of people. Spiritual here is not as in godly spiritual, but as in the human spirit. No, we say, yeah, the human spirit. If somebody puts up a great show against a superior opponent in something, we say, very spirited display. Very, very spirited display. So that is the spirit, the X factor, the unknown quality that is there, which makes somebody something and gives them their character. Okay? That kind of unification did not take place. Now, Jesus Christ was able to spread Christianity in these ununified, in these unified territories of Rome where people were ununified. Okay, so all the people who were forsaken by society, not just the Romans, even the Jews and everyone, these people were the ones that Jesus Christ went to. The most famous of these is his visit to the leper colonies. The lepers lived in caves, they didn't come out, and no, they were not supposed to uh, show their faces in the light. So somebody would go leave the food, and when they were gone, only then they could come and take the food from inside the caves. But Jesus went and offered solace to the lepers. Now, if you read Hegel, his philosophy, his philosophy of history, he would say that Jesus attained a divine status. He was not divine in any way. He was ascribed this divine status by the people because of the fact that he was able to unify humanity. Okay, he says he was an astute thinker. The Romans were ready for war. They were absolutely ready for war. And the Roman army was one of the most well-oiled machines. So they were quite sure that nobody could defeat them militarily. But their defeat came not militarily, it came through the specific means. So Mahatma Gandhi, by the way, was inspired by Jesus Christ. And the Sermon on the Mount, the story that we often hear, that Gandhi said that if somebody slaps you on one cheek, show them the other, don't hit back. That is something that Jesus Christ first preached on the Sermon on the Mount, where he preached non-violence. So Jesus Christ was perhaps the first person to counter violence with non-violence and become very successful at that. Okay, and so you see, therefore, that what happens is that all these people who had been oppressed, not just the lepers, even the slaves and all these people, They were now unified in spirit by Christ, by Jesus Christ. Okay, and they became his devout followers. So, in an already, this is what James Weiser says, in an already unified territory, huge territory, which is already unified, Jesus managed to even spiritually unify people. So, if Roman civilization is a universal pragmatic civilization, then the Christian civilization is a universal spiritual civilization, not spirit in the godly sense, but in terms of the human spirit. People were identifying with each other at a spiritual level and saying that, yes, you're a human, today you're suffering, tomorrow I may suffer. So that kind of a unification was actually what was done by Jesus Christ. And the might of the Roman Empire, which was otherwise something else altogether, could not stand up to this unification of people who non-violently, if they were crucified, they went and said, okay, crucify us. Anyway, we have to die. We don't have a great life. So crucify us. We'll go to heaven. We'll get eternal happiness there. God will treat us equally. So there they found that, the Romans found that Jesus had accomplished something which the Romans never anticipated. They expected people to come at them with swords, bows, and arrows, and all. And here is this man who came with his silent followers, who basically said, uh, you know, um, kill us if you want, but we won't fight you back, and we won't listen to you. More importantly, we won't listen to you. So that is when Emperor Constantine decided that the best way to protect the Roman Empire from collapsing under the might of Christianity was by accepting Christianity as its official religion. It accepted it as its official religion, and therefore, from Constantine onwards, in the 4th century CE, you will see that you have this being called the Holy Roman Empire. Constantine was the Holy Roman Emperor, and Eastern Roman Empire, which came into Africa and all that, was given a separate capital, and it was named after Constantine, and it was named Constantinople, which is the present day Istanbul in Turkey. So this is how you first had a confrontation within the Sacerdotium and the Imperium. Okay, and went to this round went to the Sacerdotium. I mean, if the Imperium says that we are a Holy Roman Empire, and that's how the Pope became very powerful. So I have eaten your heads. Vaibhavi Patil went away 3 times, and again guilt consciousness brought her back again. So I'm not meeting you tomorrow in the morning. I'll meet you in the evening only, because tomorrow morning I may have to go to a doctor. And anyway, there are other commitments that I need to take care of. It's not a holiday for us, so I need to go to the college. So it is tomorrow. I will see you in the evening. The links have already been put for tomorrow also. And that is my wife's doing. Okay, if you see, everything is very, very organized and not disorganized like how it is when I used to put the links. That is because my wife is an extremely organized person. I'm finding it difficult to work because of my neurological problems. So she has been helping me with it. Thanks to her. Many, many thanks to her. And it's also making things easier for you, I suppose. Anyway, so I'll see you tomorrow evening where we'll pick up the state. And I'll tell you how the state is not a state, but it is an imperium. I'll do it very quickly. And then we'll finish off tomorrow the imperium and the Sacerdotium controversy. We'll finish that off tomorrow. Okay. Thank you very much for your patience, for your kindness, and for waiting, even though I just thought since I didn't have another class now, I might as well use this to give you a little bit more of detail. Like I said, people say the devil lies in the details. It's not the devil that lies in the details. It is God lies in the details. Knowledge lies in the minor details. Okay. So I always strive to do my best, give as much information as I can, given the constraints of my own knowledge, time, and everything else. Thank you very much. So see you tomorrow.